What is a postnuptial agreement for? So let's start with the simplest definition. A postnuptial agreement is like a prenuptial agreement, except it's signed after you're already married. The same kinds of things that you can cover in a prenup, you can also cover in a postnup. The types of things that you can't address in a prenup, you also can't address those things in a postnup. There are some technical differences in the way your lawyer drafts them, but in terms of what they mean for you, your marriage, your assets and debts, they're essentially the same except for the timing. Almost anywhere you can get a prenup in the United States, you can also get a postnup. Prenups are enforceable in all 50 states of the United States. Until just recently, prenups were allowed in 48 out of 50 states. But Ohio just signed the law allowing postnups. So as of March 2023, postnups are available to citizens of Ohio as well. Iowa is the only state left that doesn't allow postnups, but I believe it's only a matter of time until they're legal in Iowa as well. Allowing prenups but not allowing postnups basically means you can't ever go back and amend your prenup if things change or you want to update your agreement. And there's also many other legitimate reasons you might want to refresh your postnup during your marriage. So a state prohibiting them doesn't really make a lot of sense. I expect it will change. But back to what postnups are for. We've established that postnups can be used for the same reasons as prenups. What are the scenarios when someone might want to get a postnuptial agreement? There are way too many to count, but I'll give some examples here that will hopefully give you an idea of the reasons you might want to think about a postnuptial agreement. So the first one, this might be cheating a little bit, but it's people who get a prenup too late. So this is a very common reason. Many people start the process of getting their prenup too close to their wedding. And so they don't actually finish the process until after the wedding takes place, which doesn't bother me. I would rather couples take their time. You're deciding what your financial relationship is going to look like for hopefully the rest of your life. It's not a process you want to rush. And for some couples with the wedding planning, the honeymoon planning, getting ready to change residences, sometimes it's too much to do all at once, and we don't finish the process in time for the couple to sign before the wedding. You can also have issues with enforceability if you sign your prenup on the eve of your wedding in some states, especially if you don't have separate lawyers representing both sides. And if you're one of those people who is thinking about getting a prenup drafted and springing it on your fiance a day before the wedding, just don't do that. Don't be that person. You don't want to save your finances and ruin your marriage. There is a way to be fair about this. Another reason for a postnup is you want to save your marriage. Say you have a situation your spouse has had an affair. They are apologetic. They want to work on the marriage, but you have concerns that simply must be addressed. And a postnup is a good way to address certain issues. For example, I did one where both spouses were successful lawyers and had great careers. And they agreed that the wife would take a break from the workforce to stay home with their daughter until she was kindergarten age. And during that time, the husband goes out and cheats. And the wife realized that if he left her for someone else during a time period when she was home with their child, that she would be in a very vulnerable spot financially. She can't just go back to work and pick up where she was on the partnership track, right? She made a serious, permanent sacrifice to her career for the family. So they agreed that if the husband had another affair, that he would pay a much larger than normal amount of alimony and would also get a smaller share of the assets. I've seen postnups include all kinds of things like this: infidelity penalties or incentives to punish other behavior that has arisen during the marriage, like alcohol use, drug abuse, wasting of financial resources, or financial infidelity. These kinds of postnups will try to disincentivize the behavior that the couple agrees must end for the marriage to work out. You may want a postnup if there's been a change that wasn't anticipated before the marriage. For example, one party decides to be a homemaker and the parties hadn't planned for that, or one spouse or the other wants to start a business and they want to protect it or keep it only in one spouse's name for some particular reason, or the couple wants to invest in a business or a property, but they want the proceeds of that to be 70-30 or something other than straight joint ownership, or they're going to bring in a third person and it complicates it and they need to have kind of the division of that between the spouses in writing. There are several things that could come up to change the way a couple might want to define their financial relationship. You might have a spouse who receives a big inheritance and the couple wants to use some of that to pay off their mortgage, but they also agree that if they divorce, that the spouse will get their inheritance back before they split the proceeds of the sale of the house. You may have a situation where one spouse agrees to be a homemaker. That spouse is only comfortable doing that if they write in for some alimony for the stay-at-home spouse, if they get divorced while the homemaker spouse is out of work. Another reason for a postnup might be that the couple simply realizes that what the law would do with their assets and debts is not what they want to happen. And they want to have their own control over the fate of their financial estate. Maybe you just realize that the way that the law treats your assets and debts is not how you or your spouse intended it to be. You may be one of those couples who has lived lives like many of us do, where you have an understanding that certain categories of assets and debts belong to one spouse or the other, and you're realizing that the court system isn't going to honor that agreement unless it's in writing. So you want to have something on paper that says, my student loans are my responsibility. Your credit cards are your responsibility. The child support I received from my first spouse goes to me. Your rental income from this other property belongs to you. We keep our own retirement accounts if anything happens, so on and so forth. That is a very, very good reason for a postnuptial agreement. It may also be that divorce is possibly on the horizon, and you want to take matters into your own hands and decide on the things that you can agree upon while you are still communicating well enough to do so. One of the reasons divorce is so expensive is because people don't divorce when their relationship is at a 6 out of 10. They divorce when it's a 1 or a 2. And at that point, typically all trust has gone out the window. And so even simple things like the disclosure of bank accounts can become extremely difficult because one spouse doesn't trust or believe that they know everything that's out there. Or a couple may simply know that they won't be able to agree on a fair division of assets once emotions take over and they're in the middle of a custody battle, potentially. So many couples just want to go ahead and agree to as much as they possibly can if they believe that divorce is on the horizon before things get worse. And a postnup is a good way to do that as well. These are just some of the reasons that couples may want to take how their assets and debts are treated out of the hands of the state and make those decisions on their own. To learn more about how postnups and prenups are used and their benefits, come visit us at prenups.com.